Welcome to Trending Update USA, I'm Stefan. What does it say about modern sports when a young athlete, halfway across the world, battling fatigue, pressure, and expectations, still finds the energy to celebrate something far bigger than tennis? And more importantly, why does that moment resonate so deeply with fans? That's the question surrounding Coco Gauff and her unexpected, heartfelt reaction to a major milestone from NASA. Even while dealing with the physical toll of travel and competition, she publicly celebrated a historic moon mission, something that, at first glance, has nothing to do with tennis. But when you look closer, it actually tells us a lot about where sports, culture, and identity intersect today. Let's start with what happened. Coco Gauff, one of the most recognizable young stars in global tennis, had just been navigating the demands of international competition. Anyone who follows the tennis calendar knows how intense it can be, players jumping between continents, adjusting to time zones, dealing with jet lag, and still expected to perform at their highest level. In the middle of that, Gauff took to social media to celebrate a major achievement by NASA, marking a historic step forward in space exploration. It wasn't a long statement. It wasn't a press conference. It was simply a genuine, spontaneous reaction. But that's exactly why it caught attention. Because in that moment, she wasn't just an athlete. She was a young person inspired by something bigger than her own career. Now, let's move beyond the surface and think about why this matters. Athletes today are no longer confined to their sport. They are public figures in the fullest sense, voices in culture, politics, science, and global conversations. What Gauff did reflects a broader shift. Today's athletes are expected not only to perform but also to engage. Fans want authenticity. They want to see what players care about beyond the court. And yet, that expectation creates a complex balance. On one hand, moments like this are refreshing. They remind us that athletes are multidimensional. Gauff celebrating a space mission highlights curiosity, awareness, and a connection to global progress. It breaks the stereotype that athletes live in a bubble. But on the other hand, there's pressure hidden beneath that authenticity. Think about it. When every post, every reaction, every opinion is visible to millions, even a simple message becomes part of a larger narrative. Athletes are constantly being watched, interpreted, and sometimes judged for what they say or don't say. So when Gauff posts about NASA, it's not just a personal reaction anymore. It becomes content. It becomes discussion. It becomes something analyzed, shared, and debated. And that brings us to the role of social media. Social media has completely reshaped how athletes interact with the world. In the past, fans would only hear from players through interviews or press conferences. Now, platforms allow direct communication, unfiltered, immediate, and personal. That's powerful. But it also removes the boundary between public and private life. For someone like Coco Gauff, who has grown up in the spotlight, this environment is normal. But normal doesn't mean easy. Every post carries weight. Every moment of authenticity risks becoming a headline. And yet she still chose to share that moment of excitement about a moon mission. Why? Because inspiration doesn't wait for convenience. It doesn't pause for jet lag. And that's where this story becomes meaningful beyond sports. There's something symbolic about a young athlete celebrating space exploration. Both represent human ambition in different ways. One is about pushing physical limits. The other is about pushing the boundaries of knowledge and possibility. When those two worlds intersect, it creates a powerful narrative. It reminds us that excellence isn't limited to one field. That curiosity connects people across disciplines. That someone competing on a tennis court can still look up, literally, and feel inspired by what humanity is achieving beyond Earth. But let's also talk about the mental side of this. Travel fatigue, media obligations, performance pressure, these are constant realities for professional athletes. Jet lag alone can disrupt sleep, focus, and recovery. Add the expectations of being a global star, and it becomes even more demanding. In that context, even small actions require energy. So Gauff choosing to engage with something outside her immediate professional responsibilities says something about her mindset. It shows a level of awareness and balance that isn't always easy to maintain. Because many athletes, understandably, shut everything out during competition. They focus inward. They protect their mental space. But Gauff did the opposite. She looked outward. And that raises an interesting point about how athletes manage pressure today. There's a growing conversation about mental health in sports. We've seen more athletes speak openly about burnout, stress, and the challenges of constant visibility. The modern athlete isn't just dealing with physical demands, they're navigating a 24/7 media environment. In that environment, moments of genuine enthusiasm, like celebrating a scientific achievement, can actually serve as a kind of mental reset. A reminder that there's a world beyond rankings, matches, and expectations. It's a shift in perspective. And perspective matters. Because when everything revolves around performance, it's easy to lose sight of the bigger picture. But moments like this bring that picture back into focus. They remind both athletes and fans that success isn't only measured in trophies. It's also measured in curiosity, awareness, and connection to the world. Now let's consider the media angle. The way this moment spread tells us something about what audiences respond to today. It wasn't a match result. It wasn't a controversy. It was a simple, positive reaction. And yet, it gained attention. That suggests a shift in audience interest. People are not only looking for drama or competition, they're also drawn to authenticity and relatability. Gauff's reaction felt real. It wasn't staged. It wasn't part of a promotional campaign. It was just a young athlete sharing excitement. And that kind of content stands out in a space often dominated by highly controlled narratives. But again, there's a double edge. Because once something resonates, it becomes part of the athlete's public image. It shapes how they are perceived. And that perception can influence everything, from media coverage to fan expectations. So even moments of spontaneity carry long-term impact. That's the reality of modern sports. Now, let's zoom out even further. Why does it matter that a tennis player celebrated a moon mission? Because it reflects the interconnected nature of today's world. Sports, science, culture, they're no longer separate conversations. They overlap. They influence each other. They share the same digital space. When an athlete engages with something like space exploration, it brings that topic to a different audience. It creates a bridge. Someone who follows tennis might suddenly become curious about NASA's mission. Someone interested in science might pay more attention to the athlete. It's cross-pollination of interest. And in a world where attention is fragmented, that kind of connection is valuable. It also speaks to representation. Coco Gauff is a role model for many young people. When she shows interest in something like space exploration, it sends a subtle but important message that curiosity has no boundaries. That you can excel in one field and still engage with others. That message matters, especially for younger audiences who are still shaping their sense of identity. It tells them they don't have to choose between passions. Now, let's bring it back to the human level. At the end of the day, what we're really seeing is a moment of inspiration. A tired athlete, in the middle of a demanding schedule, takes a moment to appreciate something bigger than herself. That's relatable. Because everyone, in their own way, experiences that balance between personal challenges and external inspiration. We all have moments where we're exhausted, focused, overwhelmed, and then something happens that reminds us of the bigger picture. For Gauff, it was a moon mission. For others, it might be something else. But the feeling is universal. And that's why this story resonates. It's not about tennis. It's not even really about space. It's about connection. Connection between individuals and ideas. Between effort and inspiration. Between the everyday and the extraordinary. And in a time when so much content feels repetitive or manufactured, moments like this stand out because they feel real. They remind us that behind the headlines, behind the performances, there are people experiencing the world just like everyone else. Curious. Inspired. Engaged. So what can we take away from this? First, that athletes are more than competitors. They are participants in a larger cultural conversation. Second, that social media, while complex, can still create meaningful moments of connection. And third, that inspiration doesn't require perfect conditions. It doesn't wait until you're rested or ready. Sometimes it shows up in the middle of fatigue, and you choose to respond anyway. And maybe that's the most important part. Because it shows a kind of resilience, not just physical, but mental and emotional. The ability to stay open to the world, even when your own world is demanding. That's something worth paying attention to. As we wrap this up, it's worth reflecting on why stories like this matter beyond sports. They remind us that achievement isn't isolated. That progress in one field can inspire people in another. That curiosity connects us across boundaries. And in a world that often feels divided into categories, sports, science, entertainment, moments like this bring those categories together. They show us a more complete picture of what it means to be engaged with the world. Not just as an athlete. Not just as a fan. But as a person. Thanks for watching Trending Update USA, I'm Stefan. Before you go, here are a few questions to think about. Should athletes be expected to engage with topics outside their sport, or should they focus only on performance? Does social media help athletes express their true selves, or does it add more pressure to their lives? Can moments like this actually inspire fans to care about science and global progress?